Consider Commando radio show, AUN-TV, and my lovely wife Christine and I are at the Florida Election Integrity Summit here in October 2022, Orlando, Florida. Our next guest, Timothy Canova, is a Nova Southeastern University law professor, and he happened to be the one who was running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz twice.
Wow.
And he is presenting here to a large crowd.
That's an icon.
On election integrity, and we're going to get into that here, and let's get you started with right now.
There you go.
Timothy, welcome to the Consider Commando radio show.
Thank you. Please call me Tim.
Tim.
Okay. That's incredible. You actually raised a lot of money.
Yeah.
You had Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and that was under the microscope nationwide. People were rooting that you would win. And tell the story, though, because this election integrity issue isn't just 2020. This goes back a few years.
It does.
All the network of ways that the machines and the people involved can corrupt. Talk about that.
It was an epic campaign, a real David versus Goliath kind of a struggle.
Sure.
I had never run for an office before when I jumped in, and I was challenging Wasserman Schultz in a Democratic primary. I was a Democrat at the time. I'm no longer a Democrat. The party has shifted and not just corrupt, it's changed its positions dramatically. But
in many ways,
So I challenged her in 2016, and she was the chair of the Democratic National Committee at the time.
Okay.
And our campaign went viral. We raised almost $4 million from 209,000 individual donations of $17 each, all online.
Whoa.
Okay.
That's grassroots.
It was total grassroots, and we put that money right back into the district. We opened up 4 field offices, which is really unheard of.
That is.
And we had an army of several hundred folks, between field organizers to volunteers, and we were knocking on 12,000 doors a week. So this was a massive effort. Wasserman Schultz was on her heels the whole time, and by the end of the campaign, our internal field numbers showed us pulling away and winning with a comfortable margin. But the day before the election, the local NBC affiliate had up on their website a preview of the next day's election, and they had Wasserman Schultz ahead of me by 13 percentage points, with 69% of the precincts reporting. The only problem was it was a day before the election. No precincts had yet reported anything.
Hey, the New York Post and others have. This is not the first time that leaked results in the major media organizations are just showing up. Even here with Carrie Lake now.
It just happened to Carrie Lake. The
Lake.
Fox 10 in Arizona has Hobbs ahead of Carrie Lake 53-47 2 weeks before the election. So you got to wonder what's going on. That's put enough doubt in my mind that when the official election results came in and Wasserman Schultz won it by the exact spread that had been leaked the day before by the press, I didn't concede. And I asked to see the ballots and put in a official request to inspect the paper ballots. And in Florida, paper ballots are considered public records, and we have a very good public records law, so we were entitled to inspect them. And the supervisor of elections at the time was Brenda Snipes, and a very corrupt Broward County supervisor. And she stonewalled us for 6 months. I finally filed a lawsuit. And 3 months into the lawsuit, and only a few days after serving discovery demands, Brenda Snipes destroyed every ballot that had been cast. Illegally destroyed them.
Yeah, because you have to retain those for 22 months according to federal law.
That's right.
Statute.
And she missed by 10 months, okay? So it wasn't even close. And she then withheld from the court, she concealed from the court and from my lawyers and me for another 2.5 months that she had destroyed the ballots. She was trying to bleed our campaign because we were setting up to run again as an independent.
Sure.
And while she stonewalled us, she kept the litigation going. We deposed her, and this was the good thing about the litigation continuing. We have sworn videotape deposition testimony of Brenda Snipes admitting to destroying every ballot and having no excuse for it. So these are crimes. They should have been prosecuted. We were hoping the governor at the time, Rick Scott, was going to prosecute, and he was well aware of this case because we were flooding his office with hundreds of calls a day.
Sure. Yeah.
And he did nothing. And my election lawyer, who at the time was a Republican election lawyer, because when you're running against the head of the DNC, you really can't find a Democratic election lawyer that you can trust. Okay. Well, my election lawyer, he said he would look into it and find out if there was any Republicans in Broward County or in Tallahassee that would be of help. And he got back to me a couple weeks later. He said, no, but none of the Republicans are going to come and help because they've got the same financial backers as Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Oh my.
Okay.
Wow, sounds like history was trying to repeat itself again and again.
Yeah. So,
it's bad.
You know, you fast forward a little bit, and the 2018 general election crash lands in Broward County. The race for governor was too close to call, and the race for U.S. Senate was too close to call. It was Rick Scott was running for the Senate against the incumbent Bill Nelson, and Ron DeSantis was running against Andrew Gillum for governor. And it was too close to call, and the same corrupt Broward supervisor of elections, Brenda Snipes, starts finding thousands of ballots days after the election. So, finally she gets the attention she should have deserved.
Yes.
And she stops finding more ballots. They do a machine recount, and we find out that DeSantis wins and Scott wins. But after that happened, Governor Scott, on his way out, fired Brenda Snipes. Okay, she was taken out as supervisor of elections. Governor DeSantis comes in, and he reinstates Brenda Snipes. Now, I've voted for DeSantis, and I'll vote for him again. But I'm just telling you the facts.
Right.
He reinstated her, which she then retired and was allowed to retire on a $135,000 a year pension, and she was never prosecuted.
Wow.
We were also hoping that the Justice Department would prosecute her. It looked like it was going to happen, and then Rod Rosenstein at the time was the Deputy Attorney General in Washington, D.C., the same Rod Rosenstein who had appointed Mueller to investigate President Trump.
Whoa.
And he put the kibosh on any criminal prosecution of Brenda Snipes. So we never got any justice. It was mystifying that even Governor DeSantis would not have his election crimes office move forward and prosecute Snipes. So I don't know what kind of negotiations had been done behind the scenes, but it certainly has the appearance to many of us that there was some kind of bargain that was struck between the Democrat establishment and the Republicans.
Okay, I've got a question for you, Tim. You're a professor of law and public finance.
Yes.
We have some big cases, Enron. You can think of some big things. Christina, you're a great fan of she did all kinds of sales of stuff that you have in the kitchens. And who am I talking about? Never mind. What I'm trying to get to is, why do we not put a good microscope on election fraud when we do it on public finance and the corruption in corporate America and white collar crime? They come after that. This is so important that we have clean elections.
It is, and even the microscope we put on corporate crimes, I think, is maybe a little bit illusory. There's a lot of corporate crime that still goes under the radar, that doesn't get investigated and doesn't get prosecuted.
Right.
And you look at the largest corporate criminal in American history, it would be Pfizer paying, I think, a $2.3 billion settlement for the marketing of, I think, an anti-arthritis drug. And the allegations were that Pfizer lied on the clinical trials and bribed doctors, basically. Kickbacks to doctors. And they get slapped with a $2.3 billion fine, which that's just a cost of doing business for Pfizer. Nobody gets prosecuted. No Pfizer officials ever have to go to prison. And that creates a moral hazard, of course, where that kind of behavior might be repeated. Many would argue they repeated it with the Pfizer COVID vaccine.
Yes, big time.
I was thinking of Martha Stewart. I apologize.
I was remembering after. I bet you it was Martha Stewart.
But
this is so important.
Your point is, this is, and it's been said here today at this forum, that election integrity is the most important issue we have here, because when you don't get that right, you don't have representative a system of government.
Absolutely.
Okay, if the folks who are being installed in these rigged elections, they might not even be part of the rigging, but they probably have a clue that it's not all in the up and up.
Right.
So they're not really representing the American people.
No.
Who are they representing? They're representing special interests.
Sure.
And then take a look at the companies that run the electronic voting machines.
Yeah.
It's basically a cartel of 3 companies.
Yes.
Dominion
Yes.
Voting, that got a lot of
Yeah, it is.
attention
Yes,
for
it
the
is.
presidential 2020 election.
Yeah.
Here in Florida and in many states, Election Systems and Software, ES&S.
Yeah.
And then there's Hart InterCivic.
It's 94% of all, isn't it?
That's right.
those 3.
So I wanted to see who's behind ES&S, who sits on their board of directors,
Yeah.
who are they, the management accountable to, who's overseeing them.
Yeah.
And to my horror, and this is several years ago, I discovered ES&S is owned by a private equity firm, the McCarthy Group, based in Omaha, Nebraska. And then you take a look at Dominion, and you take a look at Hart InterCivic,
Yeah.
also owned by private equity firms. So this doesn't look much like a democracy and a representative constitutional system. It looks more like a casino that we're operating.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't even have stockholders that could come in and raise ruckus on this because of their private equity firm.
Exactly. So that's right. Shareholders maybe would sue, derivative suits. The SEC could be involved, but as private equity firms, they go under the radar.
Yeah. Well, thank you for illuminating us on this.
Amazing.
Tim, we'll kind of go up against a hard commercial break pretty soon.
At the moment,
but
a little bit.
how can people get more of your writings?
Yeah.
What's your main statement you want to close with?
Well, the main statement is that this has to change, and that what's really needed is to get rid of these electronic voting machines.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
This country did pretty well for a couple of hundred years with the hand counting of paper ballots in public.
Yeah.
And with today's technology, you can have the most transparent election counts by allowing people to bring in their cell phones and to photograph and to video record the hand
Everything.
counting, okay?
Yes.
And that's really the direction we have to move in. And I was dismayed to see that Governor DeSantis was asked this question by Lara Logan at a conference about paper ballots, and he said it would be returning to the Stone Age.
Oh my
Now,
gosh.
nothing could be further from the
No.
truth.
Not
The
even.
problem is what we have now is machine-dominated election counts.
Sure.
Okay. And it's like a black box voting. You make your vote, and then you don't know whatever happens to the vote
Yeah.
and how it's
Sure.
counted.
Yes.
And that's what's really got to end. These machine counts, the governor needs to know that that's not going to make America great again.
No.
That if we're going to have
point.
fair elections that are transparent, it has to be the American people that are involved in a very personal way
That's
in
right.
these hand counts.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay, and if folks want to learn more about it, really all they have to do is go online and do a search for me. They can come to my website at Nova Southeastern University. I'm on the law faculty.
Okay.
And any kind of search up should pop a lot of information about our campaigns and our battles against the supervisor of elections here.
Wow.
Well said. Hear, hear.
Beautifully
Thank you
said.
for coming on the Consider Commander Radio Show.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on.
bless.
Very much appreciated.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right. God bless.